The patriarchy continues to keep women down, with women still earning only 75 cents for every dollar a man makes. It's time for this to change. It's just unfair. If we take a look at the charts that are available, we can see very clearly in this one, with women being the orange share of the income, they're making way less than men, even with all of the adjustments we've tried to make over time. So it's time that we start looking at why there is a gender pay gap. As you can see, different states have different degrees of gender pay gaps, with Wyoming and Louisiana being some of the worst offenders out there. And that's probably because they're the most sexist states that we have in the country. Both are also known for being very racist states, so it makes sense that they would also discriminate against women. Probably very strong patriarchy embedded in those states, and the governments there are undoubtedly sexist, racist, and prejudiced against anybody who's not a white male. Taking a look, though, we can see that it's not only that women get paid less, but they also work more safely. This chart shows that fatal occupational injuries in the United States in 2008 are 92.7% male. So if that doesn't show you how dangerous men are at work, I don't know what will. Clearly, if men are dying 92% of the time to only 7.3% of the time for women, men are far, far worse at performing safety functions within their roles. Let's take another look at a chart here that some of the propaganda producers are creating, saying that there are jobs where women make more than men. And if you look at the jobs that are listed here, it's like producers and directors, cleaners of vehicle and equipment, wholesale and retail buyers, transportation security screeners, and social and human service assistants. These jobs were cherry-picked from all of the occupations in the world just because there were relatively few females in these roles, and that skewed the statistics. So these propagandists are very clever in the way that they can manipulate numbers to make it appear as if women in some occupations make more money than men. And one other thing we need to remember is that women work more than men. So they're working more and they're getting paid less. On average, women are working 39 days per year more than men. And we have a breakdown by country here, and we see India, not surprisingly, being one of the top offenders. But even in the United States, we see women working about 15 minutes more than men per day. So what can we do to correct this? Well, I think what we need to do is we need to bring in some government programs to ensure that any woman who's making less than $1 for every dollar that a man makes will get a subsidy to make sure she's making $1 or even a little bit more than $1, since she's working more time than the man. So we need to account for the fact that these women are working, and they're usually not logging the hours that they're working. So that would really help to bring things into more of a balance between men and women in terms of pay. And it's also important that we make sure women do get those hours logged that they're working, because once again, we see that they're afraid to write the hours on paper because they're afraid the employer will come back to them and fire them for logging more hours than they're supposed to. So they're not getting the overtime pay and so on. So we need to make sure that that's part of the legislation as well. And finally, we need to make sure there's a kind of affirmative action program for women, because a lot of times we can see in a chart like this one that a lot of times women are not taking the jobs in the tech industry that pay a little bit more. And that's because of discrimination. It's not because they're less capable. So we need to make sure that tech companies are required to hire, say, 50% women minimum in all of their tech and research type roles, because that would definitely fix things in terms of making sure women have their fair share of the higher paying jobs. So those are just some thoughts on this very critical issue. So if you want to leave any comments below, as always, positive comments only. Any negative comments will be deleted and you will be blocked. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again with the next episode.